Have you ever had just like a full-time job?
Oh, no, I've always worked. So, like, I mean, I always worked as a national park ranger and in wildlife. I've got to. Here's me as this is my full-time jobs were, national park rangers and look, here I am. I always worked with koalas, so there's me, if you can see that.
Okay. And that was here in New South Wales?
No, that was in, I used to work at Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary and at Dream World in the koala country.
Yes, yes.
And then I've had my own...
Back in the 80s?
Yeah, and I've had my own... Businesses. My father and I were in business together. We built my father, I was only at high school or just after high school, and we built a shopping centre, the West End Shopping Centre in Southport.
Wow.
And I think the land cost $30,000. This is the 1960s.
Sure.
And then and we had 13 shops, and I helped out with everything. And then we had some little factories the same we bought, and then eventually, but I helped him run it. But then so I got a bit of a wage out of that. I sort of managed it, but very little. Like, I mean, I think I'd get $10 a week or something. Wages were low, in the National Park Rangers I got $50 a week or whatever. There was no such thing as superannuation.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a money-mad society.
Sure.
And then I was in charge of a little zoo at Thunderbird Park.
Is that up on Mount Tamborine?
Tamborine Mountain.
Yep.
I worked at Dream World. I worked at various
you haven't retired, have you?
Jobs now. And then I was doing environmental consultancies. We had an ecotourism business where we'd take...
That's the Eco Trek at
Eco Trek, and we used to take tourists. We particularly specialised in Middle Eastern tourists from Dubai and other
parts of that country.
All these wonderful
region,
wonderful people. And before the media turned Muslims into bad people,
of course.
Before those days, Muslims were romantic people that rode camels and
and we made movies about them.
Exactly. And then the powers that be turned them into villains so they could sell more armaments and start attacking them and bombing them like we...
It's
disgusting.
Never surprises me how often the government's prepared to bring out the boat people agenda about 6 months before an election.
Yes,
it's really predictable, sadly.
And these are refugees. I mean, that's absolutely atrocious. We've got like these concentration camps. It's horrific. But so we, our clients were mainly wealthy families, and they'd all come out to Surfers Paradise, and
they wanted to see Australia.
Oh, and they would say to us we were like 4-wheel drives, and they'd say there was the best day of our lives, like could take them up into the mountains, Springbrook and up in Lamington National Park and Tamborine Mountain. One tour we had went all the way out to Killarney and the outback country where it's all sheep and the Condamine Gorge with 14 river crossings, 4-wheel drives, and they'll show them koalas and kangaroos and dingoes in the wild.
How long would you go away for with them?
No, just a day. They were just all day tours. Day tours, yeah. And they were day tours, and and that was great until David Madoff made off with $90 million in Wall Street, and we had the global economic collapse.
Oh yeah.
And then it turned out all these Dubaians that were coming over here, there wasn't oil money apparently. It was all in debt, so everyone's in debt, and so that was the end of that.
That collapse.
That
was around 2008.
Yeah, because anything to do with tourism is.
It's volatile.
Very volatile,
yeah.
And of course now we're in the touration where the whole tourism industry's
just
pretty much
collapsed.
Well, the overseas tourism industry's collapsed.
Yeah.
We can't bring anyone into the country because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oddly enough, I had a Winnebago full of people from Colombia just pull up in my driveway only a couple of months ago wanting directions on how to get to Cradle Mountain. I couldn't believe it. they had broken English, but I'm on one side of Tassie and Cradle Mountain's way over there, and I thought, well, if you go to the end of the road and turn right and just keep going that way for about 5 hours, you'll get there, you know. And they were clearly tourists, but yeah, I don't know how long they've been in Australia for, but they were having a good time.
So just look at cryptozoology. Basically, you know, crypto means hidden zoology. Bernard Heuvelmans named it.
Okay. Who was he?
Bernard Heuvelmans was a brilliant zoologist, and I've got his book here in paperback. He wrote the book On the Trail of Unknown Animals.
Okay.
And then another book called In the Wake of the Sea Serpent. So he was a zoologist, and he was collecting all these reports of animals unknown to science from all over the world.
Okay.
Where
was he based? Where was he
I think he was based in Paris.
Okay.
And I'm just seeing if I've got his book there somewhere, but that came out in the 1960s.
So he was a bit of an inspiration for you?
Oh yeah, so that's the first. Yeah, I was actually astounded that somebody was writing
these publications.
But I was collecting my own stuff from newspaper clippings, and you know, and so this is.
I might just move the camera. If you want.
So these are scrapbooks. Of course, before the internet, we didn't have anything. So I've got scrapbooks. It's all basically wildlife, you see. Like, see that one there is called A Naturalist Scrapbook, a collection of magazine newspaper clippings begun in 1958 by Gary Opit. And so these are, you know, this is one of the ways that I learnt to identify plants and animals. There were wonderful articles in women's weekly newspapers, and
have you got any walkabout magazines?
I do have very few, and so this is how I learnt. This is how I learnt to identify the plants and animals. The animals mainly, of course, because most of the articles are on animals, and so I collected these in the 1950s.
These are very pioneering publications.
Oh yes,
really, aren't they?
Woman's Day, 1959.
So you're like 15 or something?
Oh no, I was born in 47, so
okay.
I was
12, 13 years of age.
Yeah. I was about 12, 59. So
it was clear where your life was going to go.
Yeah, look, and threats to our bird life, and so you know I love these books. I mean, these are my own. This is how I identify.
That's how you learn all about these animals that you're out there looking for.
And of course, so I didn't start off interested in, cryptic animals. I was interested in
every animal,
in everything. You know, tuataras and albino kookaburras, cane toads. The first time I knew, I was at Rose Bay Primary School, and and I collected all of these articles. And look, there's Australian mammals. Look, Ghost Tiger of the Rainforests, Daily Telegraph, 1966.
Wow.
If one night soon Tasmanian farmer Mr. Reuben Charles hears from inside a trap he has set guttural cough-like barks, next day he'll be making world headlines and will be the toast of naturalists. So there's reports. These are the reports that I began to pick up just in newspapers. Daily Telegraph, 1966. Of the thylacine or Tasmanian tiger, and Tasmanian tiger has town in fever. Hobart, 1979. That article. Here's Cliff Thorne, a 77-year-old Griffith farmer who today retires, has a long white scar on his right calf. Who was put there by a Tasmanian tiger. He was bitten by a Tasmanian tiger. and look, see, and then this was. I remember these particular articles. I was delighted. This was the discovery of the mountain pygmy possum, and I cut this out of the
this
Daily
is still
Telegraph,
an endangered species.
Yeah, I was in high school, and that's the pygmy possum, and here wallaby back from the dead. They thought it was extinct. The yellow-footed wallaby sighted near Broken Hill. Daily Telegraph. And then this, my great friend, Venner Nathan, and this was published in I'm pretty sure it was the Sydney Morning Herald, Quolls at Vaucluse, and these were the last quolls, eastern quolls in
On
Australia.
the mainland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before they went extinct. And so he says, I have lived at Vaucluse since 1910 and seen the steady decrease of native wildlife. Since 1951, I've made a particularly comprehensive record of the plants and animals of this district. The last 4 years have witnessed a tragic decline in native cats, quolls, and most other native fauna and flora. And so, so there's the quoll, the last quolls, and you could see them at Taronga Zoo. And I talked
Back
to
in the day,
in the 60s, and I talked to the zookeeper there. Oh, where did these quolls came from? They said, oh, they came from people's houses, from gardens and stuff. People had trapped them or whatever, or complaining in Vaucluse and at Lone Pine. And then we moved to Queensland, and there's articles on koalas and
yep.
And all kinds of things, and the first rhinoceroses and bisons being born in Australia, the first gorilla to arrive in Australia in Taronga Zoo. They call him King Kong, and the first giant anteaters. All kinds of wonderful articles.
That's just an amazing
Look
collection.
at that one. See, charging rhinoceros killed in East Africa when it had a head-on collision with a
Chevy.
Unexplained natural phenomena. This is a scrapbook that I started as a child in the 1950s.
Yep.
And this is where I put all my newspaper clippings of really unusual reports that I found in newspapers. And of course one of the most interesting was the report of thylacines in Victoria. And so this came from the Australian Women's Weekly, February 25, 1970, and there it is.
Oh, that's the one from southeast South Australia.
Yes, that's it, southeast South Australia. Is it the Tasmanian tiger?
And you've got the original article.
And yes, and so my mother, of course, would buy the Women's Weekly, and I found this amazing article in it, and it says, 2 housewives, amateur naturalists, believe they can prove that the thylacine or Tasmanian tiger is roaming scrublands in South Australia. Written by Heather Parker, and so this it says it began in July 1967 when the passengers and driver of a Lucindale school bus had a clear view of an animal as it loped parallel with their vehicle, a mere few yards away at the side of the road for about a mile. The sighting was fully reported in local and city newspapers. Rosalie Anderson, then 13, was one of the bus passengers, and her mother, Mrs. Dawn Anderson, intrigued, tried to draw the animal described by Rosalie, the driver, Mr. Bob Jackson, and other children. And so, of course, there's the drawing. But a child had coloured in the drawing.
Yeah, from when you got the copy of the
When
magazine.
I got the copy.
Yep.
And so, and also Mrs. Kath Alcock of Camorne, 25 miles from the Anderson property, was also very interested. And so anyway, that's the kind of articles that have long appeared in these newspapers and magazines, and I would, of course, if I came across them, cut them out. I was absolutely intrigued to hear that there was Tasmanian tigers on the mainland. And then here's another interesting article that I found, and this came from the Bulletin, January 10th, 1970, Unmasking the Ozenkadnook Monster by Kevin Bolshaw, and it said that they believed that there were feral American mountain lions or pumas
In Western Victoria.
Yeah, Western Victoria, and there's the article there. Of course, man allowed to trap Tasmanian tiger in Tasmania, Mr. Reuben Charles of Morbana, a sawmilling village in Tasmania's far northwest, thinks he'd found the lair of the unique marsupial dog or tiger, and of course lots of other articles that I came across, and I put it all in this scrapbook. And what was particularly interesting was this article. This was the most interesting article I thought of all. This came from the Gold Coast Bulletin, Friday, September 22nd, 1967, and I cut it out, and there it is, Hinterland Tiger Cats. And so what it says, this is written by Mr. Carl Lentz from Mount Gravatt, Brisbane, and he said that I arrived in Gilston in 1877 when there were only 4 other families living in the district. So this is, Gilston is behind Surfers Paradise and the town of Nerang.
So not too far from the coast.
No, only 20 kilometres or so. And so he said, as I grew up, I worked on Talai Orchard on the Little Nerang River, where my father was the manager. I had a young brother, and one Saturday we went brush turkey shooting on Talai Mountain. Towards the end of the shoot, our dogs rushed off into the thicket, and my brother followed them to get the first shot. I walked alongside the thicket waiting for the flying shot of a brush turkey. They'd shoot them to eat them, of course, cook them up. All at once I saw a tree shake right alongside me with a heavy body climbing slowly up, but I couldn't see what it was owing to the thick foliage. Whatever it was had left the half-devoured body of a koala at the foot of the tree. Then a limb facing me bent with the weight of a heavy animal on it, and a great strange head appeared. I quickly loaded my gun with heavy cartridge of a type I always carried handy for big game such as kangaroos or dingoes. Then I fired as I saw the animal was about to jump towards me. It fell with a hard thump onto stones only 2 yards away. It was as big as an Alsatian dog. We tied it to a pole and carried it half a mile home. I was going to take it to 10 miles by pack horse to Nerang the next day and send it by train to the Brisbane Museum. But it rained heavily all night, causing the creek to flood. If it wasn't for that flood, we would have this and know all about this animal. As we couldn't make the journey to Nerang, we skinned the animal instead. It measured 6 feet from the tip of its nose to the end of its long, thick black tail. It was long in the body and strongly built on the forequarters, but more lightly built around the waist and hindquarters. It had 2 extra long, sharp fangs, 1 5/8 inches long, besides the usual 4 incisor teeth. Its forehead and face were a light bronze colour. It had very bright orange-coloured rings of short hair around its eyes, puce-coloured eyes, and a round, almost human, furry ears. From the back of the head, covering the body, it had a dark, thin coat of long hair. Underneath this was a thick, short coat of light blue and white stripes, the stripes running downwards, with bright marble-sized orange spots along the flanks. It was a magnificent male specimen, and when seen standing up sideways at a distance, its colouring looked more brindle than anything else. After this happened, I heard of a similar experience which happened to Mr. Gilston's first pioneer, Mr. W. Duncan. In 1850, before separation of New South Wales, Mr. Duncan was the first white man to go cedar getting around the Little Nerang district. On one trip he left his 2 Aborigines camped in the scrub and returned to his hut to find his meat had gone. The meat had been hung up in a 50-pound flour bag away out on the ridgepole of his hut, out of reach of any dingoes. He searched and found the bag ripped about and the meat gone. When his blacks saw the bag, they said, "Punch him," and described the responsible animal as a very bad fellow. They warned Duncan not to camp by himself in the hut any longer. They said the animal would sneak up in the night while he was asleep, tear out his throat and suck his blood. No Aborigine would ever camp by himself when he knew one of these animals to be in the vicinity. Duncan later returned to the area with a double-barrelled shotgun and a bloodhound. On a moonlit night, the dog treed a very big, bright-eyed animal, but Duncan could only succeed in wounding it with a 2-barrel blast of heavy shot. The animal, as big as a mastiff, then attacked Duncan's dog, and he had to bash the beast over the head with his gun stock to save the dog's life. breaking his gun stock in the process. I believe that my beast and Duncan's belonged to a different species of tiger cat. I've seen a tiger cat in the Brisbane Museum, but it is a different kind of animal altogether, only half as big as the one we saw and shot. There are a few at large yet in remote places, and they are the greatest of sneaks and night prowlers. I've seen one of the beasts since on a wallaby track at night. His eyes glowed in the dark, but I was able to make him out very clearly when he passed through a beam of light from a car's headlight. But when I searched for him together with some friends a little while later, all we could find were his tracks, very like big dog tracks. This is just a bit of pioneering experience with tiger cats. Perhaps some of your readers may find it interesting. So that's wonderful. And there's also a wonderful report of a bunyip. And this was written by Mr. F.J. Cowderoy in Southport. And he says, about so he had a bunyip experience in the Mudgeerabar's big swamp. That's all covered in suburban development today, but this is on the Gold Coast.
Okay.
And he said, I had two similar experiences behind the coastal dunes in the vicinity of the Mermaid Beach swamp. So that's just south of Surfers Paradise. Of course, all of that was wilderness in these days when he's writing. On two separate nights I heard the splashing and bellowing associated with the bunyip. The first of these experiences did not worry me except for wakening me up and getting my horse excited. The second was different, however, involving tremendous noise and disturbance. The stampeding and bellowing of cattle awoke me with a start, and the night birds were also making quite a din. Jumping out of my bunk, I lit the hurricane lamp and looked at my watch. It was 2 a.m. Then the noise died down and a deep silence followed. Turning the lights down, I settled down to sleep again. Then came some roars, louder and more frightening than before. The hair on my head rose. 3 times at short intervals, roars rent the air. Poor old Tommy, my horse, was frantic, and by the sound of dragging hobbles was trying to run away. Never have I seen a horse so agitated. He was trembling and snorting. Speaking to him quietly and patting him, I was able to calm him down. It was several days before he was normal again. There's an amazing yowie. Well, that's probably a yowie perhaps, but some unknown animal that was splashing and roaring in the swamps.
Yep.
And loud enough to terrify
a horse
and his and this Mr. Corduroy.
Horses and dogs are often a really good indicator of something weird around. They get spooked really easily.
Yeah.
Where we wouldn't smell or hear them, they do.
So now here's one of the earliest newspaper reports that I obtained on, and it's called Australia's Abominable Snowman on the Trail of the Yowie. And this is probably one of the earlier times that the Yowie appeared in print. And so there's the article there. And
that's another Rex Gilroy.
Yes,
article.
That's Rex Gilroy. So
from the People magazine. And
yeah, that's correct. So Pix People magazine. Unfortunately, I don't have the date, but it was pretty early, and it was written by Ted Lean, and these wonderful drawings of the mysterious orange-furred screeching yowie was dismissed as a children's tale for many years, but it was seen recently, and shortly an expedition will try and find it again. So this was an animal who saw the creature near Katoomba.
Okay, from the Blue Mountains.
And here's another article, and this is the one that really amazed me. And see, as I said earlier, I was a National Park Ranger.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah, and so anyway, this is the Gold Coast Bulletin, Tuesday, March 7, 1978. The hinterland yowie has been seen again, and this time by a National Parks and Wildlife worker. This was Percy Window, who was the head ranger. And the sighting prompted a claim of a second encounter with a female. The claim means a total of 6 yowie sightings have been reported from the Springbrook area in 6 months. The National Parks worker does not want his name used because of his job. People in the area know me, and they would probably lose a lot of respect for me if they read about me making what they think is a crack-brained claim like this. But it's perfectly true. I met a yowie about a fortnight ago, and I've never been so scared in my life. The man said he was cutting timber near the repeater station on Springbrook, not far from the Antarctic beaches, when he heard a grunting sound. I thought a pig had got loose and was scrubbing among the trees, he said. I went into the forest to see if I could find it. I heard the grunting again but couldn't find any tracks. Then something made me look up, and there about 12 feet in front of me was this big black hairy man thing. It looked more like a gorilla than anything else. It had huge hands, and one of them was wrapped around a sapling. The man, who was over 6 foot, estimated the strange beast was about 7 foot tall. It had a flat black shiny face with 2 big yellow eyes and a hole for a mouth. It just stared at me and I stared back. I was so numb I couldn't even raise the axe I had in my hand. We seemed to stand there staring at each other for about 10 minutes before it suddenly gave off a foul smell that made me vomit. Then it just made off sideways and disappeared. The man said he had reported the sighting to his boss but was told to keep quiet about it because they didn't want the publicity to attract any hunters with guns into a protected fauna sanctuary area. But after mentioning it to a friend, he found another Springbrook resident had seen what he believed would be a female yowie with pendulous mammaries. The point I want to make is that there is no fiction about my experience, he said. I saw this beast in daylight, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Before then I might have agreed they were comic book stuff, but no more. They exist all right. The reason they aren't seen more often is because most people who go for bushwalks make a noise. I didn't make any noise because I was trying to stalk what I thought was a pig. A young woman reported she and her boyfriend saw a yowie near the Antarctic beech trees early last January. So they were seen in January 77, and then this report took place in March, so April. The encounter would have been in April 1978. So there's the original newspaper clipping in the Gold Coast Bulletin that I collected at the time, and I was absolutely astounded to read that. Because it was in 1971 at the Rangers quarters at O'Reilly's Green Mountains in Lamington National Park, much further to the west, but in the same exact McPherson Range, border ranges between New South Wales and Queensland, that we had that animal that attacked the cabin, dragged through all the tools out.
That you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and destroyed this huge wood heap. Yeah, and we thought it had to be some huge, powerful animals with hands, but what on earth? Nothing, no such thing exists.
Pull those stakes out the ground.
And it was from these articles that I first, and I was astounded, like I could hardly believe that such a thing could exist because I was positive that there couldn't be anything existing. And then, see, here's another article. This is the 1978, 25th of August, Gold Coast Bulletin. Terror-stricken boy tells a strange encounter with the yowie kind. When they saw it in the bushland in what's now the Nerang National Park, he said it was like a little King Kong. And then more articles.
In the same area again, the hinterland.
Yeah, and that's when Rex Gilroy, 1979, came up searching for it. And so, so that the wonderful beginnings of cryptozoology, there they are in this scrapbook. And of course, as I said, I wasn't looking for mysterious monsters or something or other. I just loved animals, and I showed you my other scrapbook. And then I got a conservationist scrapbook because I was writing the beginning of the conservation movement. And so I've got newspaper clippings here in 1965 when I was the first environmental protester, holding a sign up, ban DDT, and another sign, save the barrier reef, during the, I think we used to call them the Tropicana or something, Service Paradise life-saving parades.
Okay.
And
so
I was
you chose that as the event to get your message out.
Yeah, and but of course I was doing it with the Wildlife Preservation Society. I was on the committee, and they were asking me to do things like that. The Gold Coast branch of the Wildlife Preservation Society of Queensland set up
I'm filming.
Set up a display depicting oil poised eluded waters and coral. A branch member, Mr. Gary Opit, rigged out as an oil-smeared drill worker, directed show crowds up to the display, which centred around an ocean oil rig, ironically named the Captain Cook, and included dead fish and a dead giant petrel. Show patrons were asked, "Do you want oil drilling in the Great Barrier Reef waters?" Hundreds of them filled in ballot papers on the issue. So anyway,
That was a petition, basically, was it?
Yeah, and then here's others, save the bees, birds and bees. He says, Gary Opit appeared as the spray man with junior members Niall McIntyre and Barry Hind of Gilston and Serena McCowan of Southport, and they were holding aloft official Wildlife Preservation Society banners, Save the Bees and Birds, and that was 1969. And then here's another one. There's a few of them anyway.
Yeah, for the same issue.
Yeah. So
you've always been on the front line, Gary.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and this is just a scrapbook full of all of these conservation campaigns,
Little battles you took on,
and plus other things. See, look at this. This is the sawfish. This is the sawfish. This was caught at Chindera. I took this out of a magazine. I mean, this one out of a newspaper. And now the sawfish is almost extinct on every place on Earth. It lived with the dinosaurs. It's an incredible prehistoric, completely harmless animal that digs crabs and what have you out of the mud with its jaw, a serrated paddle. And the last population now live in the Western Australia, in the Fitzroy River, I believe it's called. And if that Fitzroy River is destroyed,
that's it for
this
the sawfish.
Fabulous giant fish will be extinct, because this is virtually the last place left on Earth, because it's so easily caught.
Yeah, okay.
See, these are the first photographs of the fabulous whale sharks, and all kinds of articles. Look, there's a thylacine. These pictures came from when I was in Rose Bay Primary School, and these were the school magazines. And so anything on wildlife since I was a child,
you just grabbed it straight away.
Yeah, and look, here's Taronga Zoo was fabulous. And look at this is one of the world's largest lizards. This is Varanus salvator. This is that's from Borneo, a huge monitor, and they have similar ones in Komodo dragons, and of course the New Guinea monitor, the giant monitor. But yeah, there's all kinds of wonderful things. The oarfish, giant oarfish, giant leathery turtles, all kinds of fabulous articles that I collected as a child growing up. A naturalist scrapbook, you see. All kinds of things. So then cryptozoology slowly developed, and so some of the earliest books, as I said, Rex and Heather Gilroy
were real pioneers.
Yeah, they were pioneers. They're the grandfathers, the fathers and mothers of, you could say, of
cryptozoology. Well, how old would Rex be now? He'd have to be in his 80s or 90s.
No, Rex is about, I know Rex and Heather well, and they live at Katoomba, where they've always lived, and that's one of his books. That was his first book, Mysterious Australia. Wonderful little book, and published by Duncan Rhodes and Nexus magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Duncan gave me that. The next book to be written, or one of the earliest, Out of the Shadows, Mystery Animals Australia by Tony Healy and Paul Cropper. And they gave me this copy because usually I helped them, I gave them information.
To put in their books.
And they
credited you for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then
gave you a signed copy.
Gave me a signed copy. And so that's another wonderful book. And of course, these books came out, just the dates, 1994 for Out of the Shadows by Tony Healy and Paul Cropper, and 1995 for Mysterious Australia. So they're the first two books that came out of cryptozoology. Yeah, there they are.
Yeah.
They're wonderful books for any cryptozoological license. And then following them, of course, were more recent books. This wonderful book by David O'Reilly, Savage Shadow in Search of the Australian Cougar, and David was the head journalist of, I think, The Australian, based in
I think that was the 1980s, that one, actually.
Yeah, I bought this in Melbourne, 1981, Creative Research Perth. That's a wonderful book. I've
got that one.
You've got that one? Yeah. And then some other. The earliest book of all that I've got is The Bunyip by Charles Barrett. Yeah, Charles Barrett, who's a brilliant zoologist.
How old's that one?
And this is an old book. Yeah, I found this in a South Australian bookshop, and The Bunyip and Other Mythical Monsters and Legends. That's 1946.
Wow.
So
it's got a lot of the indigenous perspective on
yes,
all of that as well.
yeah,
I suppose.
exactly, Bunyip. And then my late sister-in-law, I've got one brother, John Opit, who lives in Limpenwood, and his wife, Josie Flett, published this book, A History of Bunyips, Australia's Great Mystery Water Beasts. And it was my brother, who's a wonderful artist, and he painted this wonderful watercolour painting of the Hawkesbury River Bunyip, or Hawkesbury River monster. Reports of this animal are still coming through. And this particular animal sounds like a true surviving plesiosaur.
Okay. Which is along the lines of the Loch Ness Monster.
Exactly, yeah, very Loch Ness Monster-like. So that's a nice little book on the bunyip. And of course the bunyip, as I'd said earlier, was probably a seal. But see, there's two of the drawings by first Australians of the bunyip, but one looks like an emu. There's two different kinds of bunyips, and one, I mean, almost looks like a pig, but maybe it's a diprotodont or something.
Yeah, I know the Ngarrindjeri people in South Australia call it a mullawonk.
Yeah, that's right. And if you notice carefully, it's got huge teeth. So it's not a pig or a cow. You can see the size of the teeth. And the diprotodont means two front teeth. They had these huge front teeth.
So it's highly possible that was based on that animal.
Yes, and and one of the earlier reports I had, they said it was a giant wombat ant-like animal that was the size of a cow or a bull. And but so there were different kinds of bunyips. And the original bunyip was from an animal that was very much like a seal, and as I said earlier, was probably a freshwater seal. But there's a couple of drawings that my brother John Opit did again of possibly what the bunyip looked like. It could have been an animal that was something like a Palacestes, a marsupial tapir or something, because they described it when people saw it as had an elongated neck.
Okay.
And a large body. But then seals have elongated necks, and if you'd never seen a seal, maybe that's what you'd think that was.
Early in the colony.
And then, of course, a more recent book, Bunyips, Australia's Folklore of Fear. And this book was written by Robert Holden. And another wonderful book on bunyips. And it includes a whole array of bunyips. And, of course, the most astounding bunyips were no doubt what we now call yowies. So that's the very first illustration of a yowie, and it was appeared in the Sun newspaper, the Sydney Sun, and it was entitled The Bombala Anthropoid. It was illustrated by Will Donald and reproduced in the Sydney Sun newspaper on 10 November 1912. And this animal disturbed a group of surveyors and their workies, attendants. They were government surveyors, and they had the fire going. And this animal came charging in and roaring and bellowing at them, and then ran off on 4 legs, and then got up on 2 legs. And they said it had a big, a very large, extended belly.
Maybe it was a pregnant female.
Yeah. And then another gentleman wrote in from the Hawkesbury Valley, and also published in the Sydney Sun newspaper, that many of the local residents in the Hawkesbury River were seeing this same animal, and he said at least 3 different people had seen that that big bulge in the front is its pouch, and it's a marsupial, and it's sort of like a marsupial ape or marsupial gorilla or marsupial man. And people had described, 3 different witnesses had described a baby sitting in the pouch with its head and arms hanging out, looking. And of course, anyone that saw it would be totally terrified. But it's a completely harmless animal, or so it appears to be. So maybe there's more than one kind of yowie or whatever.
It would be entirely possible.
Yeah, but so then another wonderful book that came out, this time by one of the few zoologists involved in cryptozoology, and his name's Malcolm Smith, and this is another wonderful book I can highly recommend called Bunyips and Bigfoot.
I've got that one as well.
Yeah, and absolutely wonderful book. And on the back, he goes into sea serpents. Malcolm Smith. He's got a wonderful site on the internet, and there's a wonderful report of a sea serpent, almost like a giraffe-like animal, doesn't it? This elongated head, seen by Australian Navy personnel off the Western Australian coast during the Second World War. And underneath another illustration of an animal that was seen on Fraser Island and was scientifically named, and was like either a giant turtle or a plesiosaur or something, but something with a big domed body and an elongated neck and head and some sort of a tail as well was seen on the shore, and well known and observed by the lighthouse keepers, and the school teachers saw it, etc., and the Aboriginals knew it well. So another excellent book. And then, of course, another fabulous book. This once again by Tony Healy and Paul Cropper, The Yowie in Search of Australia's Bigfoot. So that's another wonderful book. I
haven't seen that one before.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's one of the best books. And there's Paul Cropper and Tony Healy, and so that's a magnificent volume, well worth
very researched.
Yeah, and so
probably the thickest one you've got there on the Yowie.
Oh no, you wait till you see Rex and Heather Gilroy's book. But I just wanted to show you. So there's Rex Gilroy there in Tony Healy and Paul Cropper's book, and absolutely fascinating book. Very, very detailed accounts. There's a bit of my stuff in it there, and then this is Andre Clayton and the Springbrook footprint cast, photographed by Tony Healy. That there, so you can see that.
Yep.
And so that's this footprint that I showed you earlier.
Oh, that's the same one. He gave it to you.
Or one of a series of them. Yeah,
okay,
like
awesome.
he kept the best one. And then of course, this is another wonderful book, another Rex and Heather Gilroy book, The Yowie Mystery, Living Fossils from the Dream Time. So there's another wonderful, great, thick book.
That is the biggest one.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just so full of information and footprints and fossil drawings and look, all kinds of stuff. Rex and Heather Gilroy, very hard workers in the field. And here's another book out of the Dreamtime Search for Australia's Unknown Animals. All kinds of animals reported. They've found big footprints as if they were from a dinosaur. They might have been giant bird prints, but all kinds of amazing... But
that's a compilation of lots of different things, that one.
Yeah, that's right. All kinds of different things. And then, of course, another fabulous book. So it just shows you how diverse the cryptozoological scene is. This is a fabulous book by Mike Williams and Rebecca Lang, Australian Big Cats, An Unnatural History of Panthers. So that's a fabulous book, and that's the book to get.
I've got that one as well. Wally gave me that one.
Panthers, yeah, fantastic. And then Thylacoleos Lives by Dennis Wright, and so a lot of the accounts of what look like black panthers, if you get a closer look at them, you find some of them are actually seem to be definitely black panthers, but other animals have a head more like a Tasmanian devil.
But they're big.
But they're big, yeah, and they're not shaped anything like a Tasmanian devil, and they're a size of a huge dog. I mean, they're massive. And this is another good, great book, and so there it is.
There's a few contributors to that one.
Yeah. See, this is edited by Rebecca Lang, forward by Dr. Carl Schucker, The Tasmanian Tiger Extinct or Extant, and articles by Peter Chappell, Cole Bailey, Bob Paddle, Nick Mooney, Tony Healy, Paul Cropper, Michael Williams, Andrew Pask, Malcolm Smith, Ned Terry and Gary Opit. So there's even a chapter by myself.
You've got a ring in there as well.
And so, yeah, another wonderful book.
Well, you're kind of getting into that age bracket where you're a bit of a grandfather of cryptozoology in Australia yourself, Gary.
Yeah.
I suppose there's many elements of what you do that you still continue to do, because like I said earlier on, you really haven't retired.
No.
You're still working, you're still contributing to research with your radio show and your online stuff.
And so that... So... To be a cryptozoologist, you must have published an article in a zoological magazine.
Right.
And this is virtually the only cryptozoological article that's ever appeared, and it's in the Australian Zoologist. And
this is your
and I've been
coup d'etat?
I've been a member of it for about 45 years, the Royal Zoological Society of New South Wales. And this particular, every year they have a particular zoological forum at the Australian Museum or Taronga Zoo on a particular subject. It might be koalas or dingoes or flying foxes or conservation or environmental legislation. And then this one was dangerous ideas in zoology. And so I thought, oh, well, this will be good. I'll present all this evidence from my show, my radio show, receiving all these reports. And so I put together a study, and so I presented this in front of 100 of Australia's top zoologists at the Australian Museum. And then they really appreciate it, and they said, these top zoologists, wonderful people, and had decades of experience, and one or two of them stood up and said, we've all received these reports, but you're the only person to ever actually take note of it and actually try to keep records and put together a study. And so as a cryptozoological citizen science and cryptozoology, data received from listeners during 18 years of Wyler Talkback on ABC North Coast New South Wales local radio. And so this paper, it's all tables of all of the species that
reported to
me. So, like, most commonly reported species, endangered species. I've even received reports, 2 different reports of a fabulous extinct bird, the paradise parrot, which was last seen in 1927, and yet I've received 2 reports of the paradise parrot still existing today in northern New South Wales and southeast Queensland. I don't know if it's real. I'm talking to somebody on a phone, and they're describing what they see. And with all these cryptozoological and all of this stuff, I just record the information and then pass it on. And I don't know if these things exist or not. I don't know if the paradise parrot exists. It hasn't been seen since 1927. But I recently received a report where an entire family stopped in the car and looked at this parrot and then looked up their bird book. They're into the birds. And, oh, look at this! Here it is, the paradise parrot.
So there was several witnesses, not just one.
Yes, and so.
Which gives it a bit more credibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you could hardly believe that. But what a wonderful thing, the world's most beautiful parrot, and might still be alive. Only lives in northeast New South Wales and southeast Queensland. And then, finally, a number of reports received for species of unidentifiable animals, received over 18 years, and so these are reports at the time I'd received, and this was published in 2017, but I put the study together like a year before then.
Yeah.
So I'd received over the radio, and also from other people who'd contact me after they'd heard me on the radio, but didn't get a chance to talk on the radio. I received 53 reports of thylacine-like animals, 20 reports of gorilla-like animals, 18 reports of black panther-like animals, 9 reports of brown puma-like animals, 7 reports of diprotodon-like animals, 4 reports of chimpanzee-like animals, 3 reports of tree kangaroo-like animals, and I've received another 2 since. A pygmy wombat-like animal, 1 report, a bunyip-like animal, 1 report, and a mole-like animal. Like, someone said, we saw a mole digging in the ground and we wanted to know what species it was in the sandhills in near Coffs Harbour. And this was Warren, I remember, from up in the New England tablelands.
Okay.
And he described the animal, and I said, look, we have a mole, a marsupial mole, that lives in the sand dunes of the central desert. No one's ever reported a marsupial mole anywhere else. Now, I don't know if Warren is trying to hoax it, but, no one's going to believe it. And he sounded perfectly genuine. He just found an unusual animal. The same thing with the tree kangaroos. There's 2 species of tree kangaroos in North Queensland. But I've received 5 reports of tree kangaroos in New South Wales.
Are they meant to have been in New South Wales originally?
Not for thousands upon thousands of years.
So they've always been up in the northern extremities.
They might have been across. I think there were tree kangaroos. There were giant tree kangaroos like 40, 50,000 years ago, before Australia dried out. So like one chap I was talking to, and it was just like the usual thing. I'd be bump into meet somebody, having a chat with them, and then I'd ask them what animals they've seen. If they happen to have spent time in really interesting areas. What's the wildlife like there? What do you see? And have you ever seen anything unusual? And this gentleman said to me, I've heard those reports of yowies and black panthers and Tasmanian tigers, and I don't believe any of it. There's no chance any of those animals could exist. And I said, so you've never... Well, what's the most interesting animal you've seen? He said, the whole family had a wonderful view of a tree kangaroo. And I said, where was this? He said, it was up at Barrington Tops.
In New South Wales?
In New South Wales, just inland from Newcastle. And I said, tell me, how did you know it was a tree kangaroo? He said, I've seen them at Taronga Park Zoo, in Sydney. He said, I know what the tree kangaroos look like, and it was exactly one of those. And I said, well, where was it? What was it doing? He said, it was just on the side of a tree. We all walked up and it was there. It was only a couple of 3 metres from us. And there was no doubt about a tree kangaroo. It looked exactly like the ones at Taronga Zoo and was holding onto the tree trunk, and it was definitely big hind legs, and it was covered in brown hair, a great long tail. And it climbed up the tree, and we all had a good look at it. And I said, didn't bother photographing it? And he goes, why would I photograph it? You can look at them at the zoo, So I said, do you think there's many in the trees there? He goes, I'm sure the trees are full of them. And I said, well, I'll tell you something interesting. No one has ever seen a tree kangaroo in New South Wales. No one's ever seen one in Barrington Tops. The only tree kangaroos that exist are in North Queensland. And I said, there you go. See, this is what keeps on happening. I asked people... He's
the great non-believer. And he had a great sighting of something that shouldn't exist.
And I said, look, if you had photographed it, it'd probably be named after you today. You would have made history. You'd have made zoological history. So it's amazing what people... report. And I don't know if he saw a tree kangaroo. He was lying to me. He could be a bald-faced liar, but why would he bother?
Yeah, this is the thing.
And he's enthusiastic about it,
He comes across genuine.
He comes across
you
genuine.
You can only take people on face value.
Yeah, like anybody else. And so these are the first published pictures of illustrations of thylacines, seen by... That was seen by... Michael Stubbs there from about 1 metre away, and he drew that illustration and looked just like a Tasmanian tiger, but not really striped, but otherwise he looked very like one.
Where was that one?
And that was at Mullumbimby.
Okay,
yeah.
Not too far away.
No, and there's you might don't know how clear you can see, but a photograph taken by Ray Harvey. It's a trail camera photograph. Mm-hmm. And this animal with very distinct stripes walked too close to the camera, and looks striped just like a
A
Tasmanian
bit like
tiger.
my juvenile
Thylacine.
in Tasmania that just sat off to the side of the camera.
Yeah, and see these are the first some of the first illustrations of, or the only illustrations of the Yowie. Once again, that's that one that was illustrated by, I think his name was Don Williams.
Oh, the surveyor.
From the surveyor. The first published illustration of the cryptozoological animal, the Australian gorilla, named by Charles Harper, published in the Sydney Sun 10 November 1912 and entitled The Bombala Anthropoid. It was drawn by Will Donald from the description by surveyor Charles Harper, who encountered it in the Corrockbilly Range when it approached his campfire at night, moving erect and then retreated at a faster gait on all fours. And then here's some illustrations by Pixie Burns when she encountered this animal in Tweedshire at 11:30 a.m. on the 10th of March 2008, less than 25 metres away, and then there's a coloured version undertaken by Diane Smith, and so another. But these are published in a scientific journal. These are the first published illustrations
In a scientific journal.
in a scientific journal
Of a crypto.
of a Yowie or doulagal, and more illustrations. And look, I found up in the Jim the Forest, inland from the Sunshine Coast, about 500 green wattle trees, Acacia irrata, that had all had witchetty grubs taken from the bark, and it was Nigel Francis that took me to the locality, and he took this photograph. I've got photographs as well, but there was no, now like black cockatoos feed on witchetty grubs, but these a thumbnail had been used to peel the bark off and to chip the wood out. There was no bites, and it was all at the base of the tree. Virtually every tree was chewed like that.
Very much in strips rather than
that's right.
chips.
And look, here's the photographs that I showed you in my
prints.
This
was the
my
little people.
book, the little people with the little stick structure and all their footprints. And
so, how was your paper received, Gary, when you?
They loved it.
Presented it.
Yeah, they loved it. Look, and there's the Nimbinji or Jimbinj or Janjadi or Little Hairy Man. That was drawn by Joshua Clark. That was the one that was seen near our house in Upper Main Arm.
Yep.
And look, there's an interesting photograph sent to me by Dean Harrison of a print, almost like a hand print of a gorilla-like animal found by a honey farmer at Gayndah in South East Queensland, 2005. Now, these were photographed on top of a tractor. And look at these interesting.
It's pretty big.
Footprints, and there's an actual giant feral cat that was shot in Victoria by a deer hunter by the name of Kurt Engels in Sale in Victoria in 2005. A huge feral cat, as big as a puma. It had a metre-long tail, or big as a black panther. Anyway, Mike Williams collected the tail, chased the report down. It was first published in a shooter's magazine, and the Melbourne Museum biologist Roy O'Brien and Melbourne University's Kate Charlton carried out a DNA sequence that determined that this panther-sized black cat shot by Mr. Kurt Engels at Sale in Victoria in 2005 was a domestic cat weighing 30 kilograms and measuring 175 centimetres from nose to tail tip, provide evidence that we have panther-sized feral cats in Australia. And that's just a photograph of me at the
zoological conference.
Yeah, at the forum. And so
in the I suppose, 60 odd years that you've been, plus probably most of your life, since you could first walk and talk, you've been collecting bugs and things.
Yes.
Have you seen a positive shift in the way these sort of subjects are received, do you think?
Yeah, previously, of course, there was only newspaper clippings, and thankfully from the work of pioneer cryptozoologists like Rex and Heather Gilroy, and then the next generation, Paul Cropper and Tony Healy, and then and Dean Harrison, and then a whole array of them, like Dennis Wright, and of course Peter Chappell in Victorian
privateers like yourself,
rare fauna research.
Yep.
And so of course there was the whole field just moved ahead very slowly, as did any field of endeavour in those days. I mean, if you're a poet or a writer or a photographer or an artist,
it takes years to get published.
Takes years to get published, and lucky if you get anywhere with it. And meanwhile, you're living your life like we're all raising children and working like. I mean, none of this is. None of this
brings paid work.
It doesn't bring any money in at all. It's pure just interest.
Sure.
And we've all got our own, jobs and making a living but now, of course, with the internet, there's fabulous opportunities, and there's an enormous amount of work going on. I've got this Australian Cryptozoology Gary Opit Facebook site.
Yep.
And there it is. There.
Yeah, I follow that one.
And I just see. There's this latest Dean Harrison Australian Yowie research.
Oh, that's the thermal images that
images
brought out last week.
Yeah, Yowie researcher believes he has enough proof to expose the creature. This is in the Daily Mail, and on their internet site, the UK Daily Mail, and they're using a heat-seeking
thermal
imager FLIRC camera. They got these. There's a person standing there, and they got these two images, and what looks very much like the normal descriptions of yowies. One of them bending down. Now, of course,
that's towering over that man.
Yeah. Now, what these are, and then so some people the skeptics. Oh no, these are only hoaxes. And well, it's all anecdotal. I mean, how do we know? We don't know what we're doing. And look at this. This is another one I found. Here's an animal. This is a video. Tourists on a cruise line are videoing a glacier collapsing into the sea. Accidentally captured a few seconds of an elongated, unidentifiable marine animal, what appeared to be somewhat crocodile-like, isolated in large dorsal scales. It's obviously not a crocodile, but look at the size of it, and it's swimming along in this glacier up in Canada, Alaska.
Where it's clearly not crocodile country.
And look, here's another panther report, and with a photograph. They didn't get the head, unfortunately, and that's Australian man captures black panther on camera. And people say, oh no, it's already just a black dog. But why would you photograph a black dog and then tell the authorities and get into the newspapers and stuff? Yeah,
there's nothing to gain from that.
And there's another black panther sighting. And you can say, oh, maybe it's just a big feral cat. But it's just interesting. And look, all these wonderful new thylacine video footage. And so it goes on and on. There's a plesiosaur. So it's fascinating stuff. Who knows if these things exist? And here's the extraterrestrials. And I've been interviewed by Casey Radio in Victoria on black panthers, on thylacines and aliens. I mean, I've never seen an alien, but there's remarkable reports, and I'm interested in anything that's
slightly out of the ordinary.
And now this is another. I've received now 70 reports of thylacine-like animals during my radio programs. This is from I'm Still Hopeful, Mysterious Universe article, an internet article. New York Times published an article on the thylacine. There's an extreme interest in the thylacine because it's basically a marsupial dog, and it's not even remotely related to dogs, of course. They're more related to kangaroos. Here's another one from a Brisbane City newspaper, Sunday Mail, 7 February 2021. People, some researchers in North Queensland had this rock thrown at them. There's footprints, and they believe that's a photograph of one there. So there's all kinds of interesting creatures. There's the hobbit, the real life hobbits from Flores Island, and unusual animals. There's a very bizarre ray.
Like a double ray.
It's completely unknown to science unless it was injured somehow or something very strange. Articles on Komodo dragons. Here's an interesting article on a yowie that crossed the road in the Daily. This is from the Daily Telegraph, and yowie sighted at Beck's Hill, and someone did the illustration. But one of these big yowies crossed the road between Bangalow and Lismore, so it's fascinating stuff. And there's another new thylacine sighting with pups, and
I think that was from our site.
Oh, it could very well be.
That was from February this year. That was in the Adelaide Hills. A fella on his way to work.
But see what happens. What happens, of course, is that then Mysterious Universe, which is I think I don't know if it's British or American.
I think it is British, yeah.
And they publish things, and then if I see them and it's okay, I copy them.
Yeah, look, people are fascinated to read these articles, and we get lots of reports. Like yourself, I don't report on half the things that I receive because there's just so much information out there that you can't be over all of it, and it takes up a lot of time.
It does, and I mean, even though I spend a lot of time during a normal day, I spend almost no time with it. But I receive reports all the time. I've got in my computer. I've got all kinds of reports, but I don't publicise them. Only because I don't have the time. It's only me,
Sure.
where I say Dean Harrison has a whole team. He's got a whole team virtually that he works with. So he can spend the time and they've got incredible reports. And then there's some skeptics. They know they're all hoaxes and none of them exist.
There's just too many.
Well, that's
There's just too many credible people with nothing to gain from hoaxing these
That's
things.
right, and from that video, that documentary on about the big cats of Victoria and South Australia, they're ordinary farmers and they're seeing black panthers. They've got their cattle being killed by huge cats. Their throat torn open, nothing to do with dogs, and farmers searching for these animals. Sightings of Tasmanian tigers or thylacines on the mainland, and it's just people are just everyone's interested in the mystery, and but I always say to people, I can't say for sure that these things exist, but I notice no one ever contacts me and they tell me they've seen a unicorn, and if they're hoaxes or hallucinations or something or other, I mean a unicorn is only a horse with a horn on its head.
Yeah.
And a dragon. Everyone has watched movies and read books about dragons, and
no one reports dragons.
No one seems to report dragons, or almost never. Like no one's had a dragon flying over Sydney or something or other.
Yeah.
Dragons aren't reported. Leprechauns or fairies or witches on broomsticks. I mean, there's virtually nothing. The demons, all of these wonderful animals that Hollywood produces, or dinosaurs, look at those wonderful dinosaurs. In America they get a few reports of little dinosaurs or what have you. Who knows what's going on? But the real dinosaurs we know were all covered in feathers from the fantastic fossils from China.
Yep.
And it's highly unlikely that dinosaurs have survived to the present. But there seems to be a fair amount of evidence that these Yowie gorilla-like animals exist, that Tasmanian tigers or thylacines exist both on the mainland in Tasmania and New Guinea, where they lived for millions of years. And we definitely seem to have black panthers and which are black leopards, and I've had reports of spotted leopards phoned in at the radio show. And when people phone me up, like, I can't say, because I could deride these people. I could tell them they're idiots that they've seen such a thing, or they're liars or something or other. But why would I?
What have you got to gain from that?
Yeah, I'm not going to gain anything. And then, like, I'm talking with people like yourself, and if I say I've seen something and you say I've seen something, we're not going to be lying to each other. We're just telling each other
our experiences.
And it's like a human imperative, because we've been successful as a species because we communicate and we tell each other the dangers involved, So, I'll say to you, don't go into that river, there's a crocodile. Where other animals can't tell each other, they go down for a drink and get taken. And that's why humans have been successful. So it's only natural for people to warn other people if they see something that shouldn't exist or that they don't expect to see, and especially in Australia if they see a black panther or they see a leopard.
It's potentially dangerous.
American mountain lion. They don't want to hoax people or frighten people. They're concerned someone's going to be caught and eaten. They're worried about their children.
Yeah.
And the same thing with yowies. They see some big hairy animal in the bush.
People are generally scared by those things.
They're terrified, and they say, "What? This is a gorilla escaped from the zoo or something or other," and they want to tell other people. And then, of course, you get idiots that laugh at them, or "Oh, you've made that up," or "You're just trying to become famous," or something.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to make things up, well. And also most of the people that see these are farmers and rural people
that live on the land.
And see the city dwellers, who make up the majority of our population, obviously enough, they live in an environment where you're surrounded by scammers and thieves and druggies and everything under the sun. And if anyone wants to talk to you as you're walking down the street, they're almost trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
Or they want to scam you for something.
And they don't spend much time in the country and on the land.
No, they've got no idea about the country. And then they hear about this and they go, "Oh, that's an urban myth or something or other," because they can't imagine how vast the landscape is. And it is vast beyond belief.
It is.
And there's vast forests and mountain ranges, and then country people, of course, rural people, they're the ones that see these animals. These are the ones that are talking about it mainly, and which the city people then laugh at. But when you're you're a country dweller, you live in a small community. Everyone knows everybody, and you're not worried about thieves and scammers or something, because everyone on the street you're living in a small country town especially, if you see a dangerous animal like a black panther, or they've been eating your sheep or cattle, you definitely want to tell the rest of the community members. You're not going to
keep an eye out.
You're going to do the right thing by other people, and that's what cryptozoology is all about. It's not trying to delude people into believing there's scary things living in the bush or something. It's trying to protect people and protecting your community by saying, "Hey, look, I've seen this, I've seen that, what's that?" And that goes down to extraterrestrials and UFOs, flying saucers or whatever. Like if you see some bizarre craft in the sky that's unexplainable, of course you want to tell people, because what is this?
Trying to find out what it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, is this an alien invasion? Is this something we've got to be concerned about? Or is this, and the Americans, of course, are very upset at the moment because the Navy personnel have been filming unidentifiable aerial craft, and they're wondering, and it's been released to the public and published in the New York Times and stuff. And the US Senate wants to look into it, because various senators, they're very concerned. They're saying, are these Chinese or Russian craft that are spying, that are flying around watching our our Navy fleets.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not saying...
There's always that risk, I suppose.
And they've got to investigate it. It might turn out that they're extraterrestrials having a look at us that have discovered us.
A lot of the time, a lot of those sightings that the military report are usually associated with nuclear facilities too.
Yes, yes.
And often when those craft come in, everything's disabled.
Yes.
And they can't turn it on, they can't turn it up, they can't do anything. So there's probably a bit of a warning in that and a message for all of us, I suppose.
Think so,
I think they're probably trying to tell us we need to slow down a bit.
Yeah, and you can understand if we're successful with space programs and say, 1,000 years into the future or hundreds of years into the future, if we develop the ability to create craft that can travel to other planets, if we found a global civilization of extraterrestrials, which would look something like us anyway, because they've got to be technologically advanced communities of animals living on the surface of a planet, just like you'd see in the Star Wars or something. All these different looking aliens, different species that have evolved. And what would you do? You would hover around and you wouldn't go down and make contact. You would watch them and start studying them, because it would be, what could be more interesting than to discover a planet of intelligent living organisms, or any planet, no matter what was on it. If there was anything alive, I mean, if there was all kinds of animals and plants as exists on this planet, you want to learn about it. You want to learn about it, and you're not going, and they're not going to be monsters. Hollywood makes wonderful films with aliens and predators and things like that.
They're very rarely friendly.
But you're not going to make a film about boring aliens, because the aliens are generally boring, but you've got to make them exciting and dangerous, so you're going to have a story and people are going to pay to come into the cinema. But the real aliens are usually somewhat, when they're encountered and described, they're relatively boring sort of thing. Like, they're not dangerous. I mean, they're potentially dangerous, but they describe them as more inquisitive, and they're just watching and looking. And if we could, in a few thousand years or few hundred years, get to other planets around other stars, then theoretically it's perfectly possible that others have come and are already looking at us, and they've got no interest in invading us, because they'd be just fascinated to find intelligent animals living on the surface of a paradise planet.
Well, the intelligent part, I'm doubting at the moment with the way the world's going. But look, I really want to thank you, Gary, so much for giving me the opportunity to hear your story. And I'm sure we could probably talk for about another 3 or 4 days, but I've got to get back to Tassie because of all the COVID rubbish. But I really want to thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you in person, and thank you for hosting me and putting up with me and my crazy dog running around your beautiful property, and your wife as well, cooking and everything. It's been an awesome experience. Thank you so much.
I'm glad we're able to get together.
It's great. I look forward to the next time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're
Cheers.
welcome. Cheers.